Now we go to River State as the two competing leaders there continue to take a pop at each other. In the last few days, Governor Fubara has acknowledged the political moment the state finds itself in following that Supreme Court judgment. He's offered some indirect words to his opponent Nyesom Wike to this effect, and I'm paraphrasing here: knock it off, stop the chaos, you're hurting our workers and our people and destroying billions of naira of wealth creating potential in the state. You're attacking cherished democratic institutions and strengthening the rabble-rousers by going after the state leadership. And that's just a paraphrase. Beyond this, we're told that the governor has been reaching out to the Amewule-led State Assembly and trying to de-escalate and lower the temperature. But can he face down Nyesom Wike and his hawkish supporters, or are the hurdles just too high? Well, for more on this, I'm joined now on the line from Port Harcourt by the lawyer, public policy analyst and former chairman of the Degema local government area under the APC, Sogbeye Eli. Thank you very much indeed for joining us. Let's just clarify a few points for starters here. Did that meeting that was scheduled to take place this morning, I think at 10 a.m. or so, between the Amewule-led State Assembly and Governor Fubara take place, or didn't it?
Thanks, Charles. Thanks for having me. Good evening, Nigeria. Reports that we have around town indicate that the meeting did not hold. The Assembly sat and we gathered, they considered 3 bills, one for powers and privileges for the House of Assembly 2025, another one for River State Independent Electoral Commission 5, and then River State Local Government Law 2025. That in a nutshell, a warrant of arrest on the chairman of the State Independent Electoral Commission, retired Justice Adolfo Sinebeli, who did not appear before them as summoned some days ago. I think in a nutshell, that's what happened today. The governor himself was another part of town, commissioning the palace of the Yewele Akpo in Obiakpo local government area. That's what, I think in a nutshell, that's what happened today.
Right, and what's, just to clarify a number of points, so the meeting didn't take place. What's the latest on the letter purportedly written by the Martins Amewule-led State Assembly to Governor Fubara, giving him 48 hours to present the budget before the Assembly, an ultimatum which we understand has now expired?
It was pursuant to that letter, public went viral, that the governor, I also saw that one under the hand of the Secretary of the State Government, Dr. Tammy, when he came, sent another invitation to the Assembly to meet with him in today at 10 a.m. I think that some of the items listed for this that meeting were on where to get Assembly to sit properly. Another is to arrange for their stored remuneration to be paid, and then after was probably arranged for the budget to be presented, 2025 budget. That in a nutshell are what items were listed in that letter for the meeting today at the government house, at the governor's office. But like I said earlier, the live feeds we have across the state today in terms of activities of the governor and the House of Assembly do not suggest that the meeting held. The meeting did not hold. So it's safe to say so.
I mean, you clearly are a man with an ear to the ground when it comes to political developments in River State. Is all this setting the scene for the impeachment of Governor Fubara?
Well, I wouldn't know we're having a fingers crossed situation, but tension is building up. It's palpable in the land. It appears the two parties on both sides are digging in. I'm also aware that about 19 commissioners appointed by the governor in the course of the political debacle between him and the House of Assembly at the time when it was before the Supreme Court judgment had been asked to stand down by Amewule Speaker and his group of 26. What that means is that asked to dissolve his cabinet, and probably they go ahead and refield commissioners for appointments. That, I think, would have formed part of the meetings that they will have. Maybe they call it truce. But clearly, what we have seen so far, it appears as though the judgments of the courts have not completely handled all the issues at stake. And we have also had threats of impeachment, of course, coming from close quarters within the assembly and outside. So Rivers people are a bit apprehensive as to where this is going to take the state to. Don't forget, Charles, by the judgment of the Supreme Court, it's impossible for the government to access the funds of the state from the Consolidated Revenue Fund as provided under the Constitution, unless and until it presents the budget to the State Assembly. And so I'm sure that if they have these background meetings to clear the aisle, it's possible that that can happen seamlessly. But where the parties on both sides are digging deep, are holding on to entrenched positions, many fear that there might be an implosion, only a matter of time. But these are going to be very fatal for the states. People are concerned because without access to those funds, the civil service will not run, project sites will be shut down, and insecurity and other issues could escalate. That's the concern, the general concern for people here. Our politics is quite acidic, our politics is quite volatile, and tensions are quite high. We are just praying that both parties should de-escalate at some point and make less fees about procedures. I love the contention I see about letters were sent via social media, letters were authored by persons who are not authorized. I've seen some arguments who say that governor ought to write to the assembly himself signing it, and that the governor not signing it and have the SSG to sign it amounts to disrespect for assembly. I don't know where the argument takes us to, but bottom line is that it appears as though a detour or rapprochement is far from sight, unless until one of the parties blinks. But I think that opinion leaders of the state at about this time ought to step in. You recall also that the president himself had stepped in much earlier and given some directives, which of course led us to the point where whilst they are being implemented, the matters are shifted to the courtrooms, and the theater of war became the courtrooms. Unfortunately for us, in our democracy, the courtrooms are now exposed to political danger in terms of perception.
Yeah, I'm going to come to the potential solutions in a minute, but I just need to clarify, because you made a number of points there. One of them was about the level of tension in the state and the volatility of the state and all the rest of it, which is obviously of enormous concern, not just within Rivers State, but outside Rivers. I wonder if you agree with those such as Asari Dokubo, who say that any attempt to impeach the governor could seriously destabilize the state and that conflict could break out.
Well, Charles, my response to that would be this. I'll be a bit mindful because I come from the geopolitical corner of the state where the governor comes from, that is called the Joe area. So some of the things I might say here, you have mentioned the Asari Dokubo, who is now king of Torres Saramapiri, with Selim Kalabari. The sentiment generally here, Charles, is about our geopolitics and balance. Some of those who hold that view don't really care about what is the reason for the hostilities between Nyesom Wike, the Minister of FCT, and his political protege, similarly from our current governor. They don't really care to know about it. What they're concerned about is that, look, from 1999 up until now, in this Fourth Republic, that the governance of this state had been lopsided. Governor Peter Oteli did 8 years, of 1999 to 2007. There was a brief interregnum between where Omeya came, and then his cousin Amechi took over for another 7 months, seven years, and then Nyesom Wike came. All of these guys I've mentioned come from the section of the state known as the upland areas. So the riverine areas are not seen power until now. So the tension from that part of the country or part of the state essentially built around the sentiment that it will be quite unheard of unfair to the Riverine people to imagine that after a first bite of the cherry, for the first time in 25 years or thereabouts, that this kind of thing is happening to one of them. And the thinking is there's an exclusion policy about to happen. For me, that is one fear that needs to be arrested, because it's awakening some kind of emotion and sentiments around that area. And the volatility that you see is built around this foundation. Like I said at the beginning of this question, because of where I come from, I may be guilty of sounding pro that sentiment, but that in a nutshell, if you ask anybody across the geopolitical divide of Riverine upland, that question is germane in this circumstance. People are thinking that it will be fair enough to allow for this balance to take effect, so that we have a state where everybody is welcome to the party, everybody has equality, access to governance, and then share of the privileges of leadership. But whatever has happened, I think that it has moved beyond an internal party disagreement, that moved beyond some kind of dissension between the father and son relation between Wike and the governor of Fubara. It has come to a point where people are thinking that, whether rightly or wrongly, that this is about political exclusion. And you know what that means in our system, where in a multi-ethnic state like Rivers State, where people speak diverse tongues, come from different ethnic groups, and have different persuasions. That, for us, is the danger right now.
Indeed, and thank you for putting that as you did, because it kind of drives home the importance of the point that you're making. So let's talk about solutions, because at one point you brought that up at the outset. What, if anything, can be salvaged from the political ruins that have been left behind by this crisis?
Okay, first, I will advocate for altruism. Altruism in the sense that people should move away from their entrenched positions, consider the states as uppermost in their considerations. The politics and the mileages that people think they will get from this crisis should take a backseat. River State should be first and foremost in their considerations. If they move along that path, it is possible to resolve these issues more easily. Two, people have some kind of interest that think that River State must be a theater where they must flex muscles. Should please sheathe their swords, because it appears as though here people are getting used to this kind of politics where taking the soft parts leaves you in the trenches as a weak person. Now, over time as well, we've also seen a pattern, a trend that should be discontinued. The judiciary, which is our primary constituency, used to be the arbiter where two contending forces or parties come to court to adjudicate over issues. Over time, we're going to have a situation where people are not inclined to accepting the verdicts of court because they read meanings into what they see. Now, just before I came on, Learned Senior Advocate Jubilee Okutekpa was on there, and the Reverend started decisis. In the part of the country where I come from, we have a history of people who have been through courts over time to settle disputes. And I used to, a situation where people are guided by precedents when people come to court. But these days, the thinking is that what they think the court will say, in fact, and in all circumstances, do not quite turn out that way. So the tendency to want to disagree is beginning to build up. I think that we should call for restraint in that direction too. The courts have a final say. Once the court has made a pronouncement on an issue, it behoves for the parties and their supporters to walk back from their fighting positions, and let's see what that could deliver. On the other hand, also, we're enjoying the courts, the judex in particular, to be mindful of the nature of judgments that will hand down per time. Because if the judgment comes and is unable to solve the problem, the judgment comes and there's still tension building up, that means something is wrong. Judgments come and if they don't deliver justice in the eyes of everybody where justice seems to be done, then something is wrong. We need to be a bit fair, a bit more liberal in our considerations before hand down decisions. And then in the time, without patronizing you, the time people like your dad, the late Honorable Justice Antonia Nagolo, carry their Shaw, put that in the Supreme Court, who are still
I'm told that
through the ranks through
we've lost
reading them.
Mr. Eli there from Port Harcourt. It looks like the the line has dropped, I'm told. I could hear him and I could see him in vision, but I'm told that the line has dropped, which is rather unfortunate because he was making some very good points there. And I was going to ask him what ultimately the two men want out of this, and whether it is going to end up as détente or whether it's going to end up on a transactional basis, because I mean, in other words, will it be a political settlement rather than a legal one? Because he was talking about the fact that once a court makes a decision, I mean, he is of course a lawyer, once a court makes a decision, then it is incumbent upon the parties to respect the decision of that court, which is of course understandable, but the court isn't there to settle, to make political settlements. It's there to determine issues of law. Let's take a quick break and see if we can sort this out, and we'll be back in a minute. Welcome back to Arise Prime Time. I'm Charles Enigolo, and I do apologize, the line dropped there for a minute, but let's take you back to Port Harcourt and to the man we were speaking to earlier, Sogbeye Eli, who was the chairman of the Degema local government council under the APC, and who is also, of course, a lawyer and a public policy analyst. I apologize that we lost you there for a minute, but those are the vagaries of technology. We haven't got that much time left, so let me ask you this. Two questions. Is there likely to be a historical point where things turn around in River State? And what ultimately do you think either man wants out of this mess they've taken River State into? Will it go into a period of détente, or will it end as a transactional arrangement? Basically, will it end on a transactional basis?
Well, Charles, I'm not going to attribute any powers of Nostradamus to myself here. But I think that essentially, even without having the benefit of hindsight to say what could happen in the next 1 hour or 2 or 1 year or 1 week, River State is a very pivotal part of the Nigerian state. Apart from our natural resources, we have been privileged to produce virtually everybody in every office in this country. We have produced, even though at the time he became president, he was not a Bayelsa man, for the good Lord Jonathan. We have produced the Chief of Army Staff, I produced the DGDSS, I produced Attorney General of the Federation, I produced top Supreme Court justices and all that. So stakeholders like this have come from this part, and they have friends across the country. It is time for their friends to rise up and stand in defense of the estate of their own friends and colleagues. We can't afford to have crisis escalate in River State to the point where we're headed. If we're unable to hear ourselves and talk to each other to a point where we can cease fire on all fronts, then our friends should step in, and there's nothing wrong with that. It does not show weakness. I also probably would appeal to the combatants to understand that what's important, like I said at the beginning, is the sanctity of River State, the peace of River State. Politics will come and go, but what's important is to be fair and just to everyone. And some of us have been victims of this kind of political things in this state, but we consider the state high and above every other mundane interest. I'm sure that if we take that approach to this journey, we can have a state we can call our own again in the next couple of weeks, and we'll look back and smile that, well, there was war, but we are past that war. Because even the worst and the most internecine conflicts, Charles, you agree with me that while the combatants are still at the field, shooting at themselves, people go to the table to negotiate. And so the power of diplomacy now becomes very imperative, and every arsenal must be deployed to get us to a point where we'll call it true truce to this. And maybe going forward, we'll learn lessons about the nature of policy we'll play here and the leadership recruitment process. That could help us to get out of this cul-de-sac, as it were.
Right. Well, I mean, the fact is that there is no, I mean, there doesn't appear to be no trust at all between the two sides. and the kind of meeting of minds that politicians like yourself and others who may want to intervene, the kind of meeting of minds that you need to allude to as a basis for a political settlement just does not appear to be there. So in the last minute that we've got, take us forward then. Let's say, you know, where you and I are having this conversation in 2027 as Nigeria prepares for the next presidential election. Where do you think Rivers State will be politically at that point?
Well, we happen to be one of those most politically active states and the poaching ground for every Nigerian that wants to lead this country. So I see here as another bride that will be courted by politicians from across board. Internally, we might be able to solve our problems and make no mistake about it, we will. The problems will be sorted out one way or the other to be sorted out. After all, we're Rivers men. And in course of time, we've had intermarriages across the divides. So that can also be another panacea to the problem, because brothers to talk to brothers, and hopefully we'll go past this dirty post. But the Nigerian state and this leadership also have a role to play here. You can't do without the political tensions that will happen across the country. We will play an active role, as usual, in determining where the votes will swing. Next to Kano and Lagos State, of course, is River State.
Right.
So
okay. I apologize, but I have to interrupt you because we're out of time. I want to thank you very much indeed, and for your patience when we had that little technical hitch there. Sogbeye Eli is former chairman of the Degema local government area under the APC. He's also a lawyer and a public policy analyst. He was talking to me on the line from Port Harcourt. That's it for this edition of Arise Prime Time. Join us again tomorrow. From me and the entire team here in Abuja and Port Harcourt, bye-bye and thank you for watching.